Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I work in TV production in the talent departments, taking care of all the performers. It's kind of like herding cats, if cats had publicists and massive egos. I did 6 seasons of the Celebrity Apprentice finale. Oh, yeah, you can see where this is going. My job was taking care of the Trump family, too. Yeah, Don Jr., Omarosa, Melania. It was like a freaking Mensa meeting every day. I worked on a bunch of those beauty pageants he had in the 90s, too. That was a good idea. Miss Teen Universe? Yeah, that's like giving Jeffrey Dahmer a cooking show. Yeah, you got that one. It took a minute, but yeah. He would line up the girls on the side of the stage and he would inspect them, literally. He'd stick his little freaking doll fingers in their mouth and look at their teeth. Not even kidding. This is true. He'd line them up like they were pieces of meat. He'd be like, you, and you. If you want to win, I'm in the penthouse suite. Come and see me. Yep. If Trump had a cooking show, they'd call it the douchebag diet. McDonald's, chocolate ice cream, and girls that look like Ivanka are all he ever eats. I really like you guys now. That's my favorite joke. I'm going to tell you one more thing I don't usually tell. I'll tell you 2 more things. Since you're being so nice to me. He's a speed freak. He crushes up his Adderall and he sniffs it because he can't read, so he gets really nervous when he has to read cue cards. I'm not kidding, this is true. I had a 24-page NDA, non-disclosure agreement. I didn't know then he was becoming president. Now it's, no way, dumbass, I'm telling you everything I know. So he gets nervous and he crushes up these pills. That's why he's sniffing when you see him in debates and when you see him reading. It's why he's tweeting, you know, it's like he's out of his mind. It makes sense if you think about it. Methamphetamine was invented by the Nazis to keep the fighter pilots up all night on bombing runs, right? So it makes sense that Trump would use it to hate tweet and his self-centered rage at 4 a.m. on the toilet. Right. I'm going to leave you with this. My favorite thing so far in the Trump era is when James Comey had to go to the White House and tell him about this dossier and the existence of a videotape of Trump taking a couple of showers with some Russian working girls. And it was Trump, right? So of course they had to be golden. Alright, take a second. Trump says to Comey, do I look like the kind of guy that needs to pay for prostitutes? Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh! So that is a comedian, a stand-up comedian named Noel Casler. I gotta tell you, I never heard of Noel Casler, but now everybody's gonna hear of Noel Casler. I mean, Noel Casler got famous last night on Twitter. Noel Casler apparently was working for the production company that was contracted for The Celebrity Apprentice, and he was, the talent guy, meaning he would chauffeur, all of the talent, oh my God, on The Celebrity Apprentice. And he says he worked there for 6 years. And people were questioning him last night on the Twitter, asking him, why isn't it listed in? People don't understand television jobs. You don't understand radio jobs. You don't understand media at all. But Noel Casler is saying he signed an NDA to work for The Celebrity Apprentice and that he was assigned to talent, meaning Omarosa, Junior, Senior, Melania, all these people. And he knows that Donald Trump crushes up Adderall and freaking snorts it because he can't read. Oh! And it upsets. This makes perfect sense, doesn't it? This makes perfect sense. I mean, I know everybody has covered for. I've even talked to, people who have done autobiographies of or biographies of Donald Trump. I have talked to people. I've talked to Michael D'Antonio. I've talked to other people who have, written biographies. Tony Schwartz is a biographer of Donald Trump's. He actually wrote Art of the Deal. You know what I'm saying? And they all say, no, Trump isn't a drug addict. Trump doesn't drink. Trump doesn't do drugs. And I've always said, then explain his personality. Explain why he's so bizarre. And no one can. Now, this man, Noel Castler, who's a stand-up comic, says that he worked on The Celebrity Apprentice for 6 years, and he knows for sure that Donald Trump crushes up Adderall and snorts it, which would explain why he wanted Dr. Ronnie Jackson, or as we like to call him, Dr. Feelgood, who would go down the aisles of Air Force One with the reporters and others and give them a Provigil to wake them up and Ambien to put them to sleep, or, it was Ambien, not Lunesta. And he wanted him to head up the VA. And even threatened that he had dirt on Senator Tester in Montana that would upend his election because Tester said he didn't want Ronnie Jackson in charge of the VA. And we know some dirty little stuff about the VA, about the people at Mar-a-Lago. We're not going to go there right this second because I just want to focus on this. If Trump has been prescribed Adderall and he crushes it up and snorts it, Adderall is for attention deficit disorder. I need to tell Donald Trump, it's not working. Stop doing it. That is not the drug for you. Oh, man, that is just so unbelievable. That is amazing. And it would explain so much about Donald Trump and the lying and the denial of his bad behavior. I mean, it's like a drug addict, isn't it? Doesn't this really reek of somebody that you talk to who has a problem with, abusing various drugs, where you tell them it's making your life unmanageable, you're telling a million lies every single day, everything you're doing is falling apart, you've been given everything in life and you're just pissing it all away because you are more loyal to this drug than you are to your family, or you're more loyal to this drug than you are to your business. This would explain a whole lot about Donald Trump. But I got to tell you, the biographers all say, no, Randy, he doesn't do drugs. He doesn't do drugs. He only lies, and he gets people to lie for him. This is just so amazing to me. This is just so amazing. So now where we are today, this is amazing because, frankly, Cohn is starting to do media interviews. Michael Cohn is. That was a softball freaking interview, George. That was a softball mother. Okay, I was so pissed. Why don't you ask him if he went to Prague? Why don't you ask him real questions? It's just so unbelievable. But anyway, the lying. He not only does Trump lie, but he gets others to lie for him. Enter now. Let's start here because here's what we now know. This thing with the payoff of the women, while it's typical Trump, and while it was a sophisticated, organized payoff, and while he defamed various people who slept with him out of the goodness of their hearts, and this Karen McDougal girl who is gorgeous, and I just can't explain why some women have such bad taste in men. She was in love with him, and he trashed her, okay? So he has no loyalty to anybody. Nobody, not even people that love and adore him. Not only people that will tell the public, I was in love with him. I loved him. I love that man. He abused me. I love that man. Ma'am, would you like to press charges? No, I love him. That's what she said on the TV, right? Even though all that happened, that is small compared to the stuff we're finding out. And of course, now we find out. The campaign was infiltrated with various Russians. Congress was purchased by Russian money flowing through the National Rifle Association. So they're compromised too. Now we're finding out that Michael Flynn's big testimony, the thing that he probably cooperated the most on, was the Russian involvement. Obviously connections to Saudis too, because that's what he was involved in, building nuclear reactors in Saudi Arabia with the Russians financing it and building, right? So we know that. And now they say he provided firsthand evidence of foreign money on the transition team and all kinds of machinations on the transition team. And now we get a Wall Street Journal article followed up by a New York Times article that says, oh, yeah, and the inaugural was full of foreign cash, too. The New York Times went further than the Wall Street Journal. The New York Times is saying, oh, there was Qatari money, there was Ukrainians, there was Russians. Now, there's a story that Scotty told me about it. I'll just say an unnamed individual known to us who was flying back from the inaugural to Miami, flying back from D.C. to Miami, and he said he had never been on a flight with that many Russians in his life. Just saying. Anecdotal evidence. So you've got a dirty campaign, a dirty transition, a dirty inaugural. You've got a organization that, Donnie Deutsch said yesterday is a 30-year criminal crime, family crime organization.
We've been focusing, rightfully so, on Russia, on the payments to these women. Let me say this unequivocally. As a guy who spent most of his career in business in New York, in the advertising business, in the real estate business, the fashion business, it's a small world. Donald Trump, in the industry of real estate developers, which is kind of a bit of a slimy business to begin with, was known as the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the food chain. I have heard story after story. This is a criminal guy. You have to do a dotted line to Letitia Jones, the Attorney General of New York, who came out today and said, oh, we're just starting with his foundation. We're starting with the organization. Russia and those Stormy Daniels are the least of his problems.
Yep.
To your point, what is going to put him in jail eventually, what is going to destroy everything he has ever built and his children, is a 30-year dishonest criminal enterprise. That is what is, one thing will take him out of the presidency. The other thing will ruin him forever. And on top of that, the political incentive for every U.S. attorney in New York or in Virginia to do it is, this guy showed up and tried to undo what 250 years of people have been dying for in this country, who we are, what we stand for. So there is a moral imperative.
The rule of law.
The rule, what we are about, what our grandfathers died for, democracy. He single-handedly is the first guy in our lifetime that tried to undo that. And he is going to pay for that the rest of his life as they pick apart his criminal enterprise. This is the very, very beginning of the story.
He's right. He's absolutely right. There is no question in my mind that Donald Trump will go to jail. Just not now. And so we have this constitutional crisis on our hands. We have a mob guy, just a money launderer. Okay, he's not the capo de capo. Okay, Putin is the capo de capo of the entire mafia. All right, and then you've got other mafia money people, but Trump is just their money launderer, and he happens to be the president of the United States of America. Now they're looking into, they got Weisselberg cooperating. Weisselberg is there to open the doors to the Trump Organization's criminal enterprise. The Trump Foundation is a criminal enterprise. The campaign was a criminal enterprise. The transition team was a criminal enterprise. The inaugural was a criminal enterprise. And the presidency is a criminal enterprise.
He's saying very clearly that he never directed you to do anything wrong. Is that true?
I don't think there's anybody that believes that. First of all, nothing at the Trump Organization was ever done unless it was run through Mr. Trump. He directed me, as I said in my allocution, and I said as well in the plea, he directed me to make the payments. He directed me to become involved in these matters, including the one with McDougal, which was really between him and David Pecker, and then David Pecker's counsel. I just reviewed the documents in order to protect him. I gave loyalty to someone who truthfully does not deserve loyalty.
He was trying to hide what you were doing, correct?
Correct.
And he knew it was wrong?
Of course.
And he was doing that to help his election?
You have to remember at what point in time that this matter came about, 2 weeks or so before the election, post the Billy Bush comments. So yes, he was very concerned about how this would affect the election.
To help his campaign.
To help him and the campaign.
See, that's why it's criminal, because it was a conspiracy. It was a conspiracy to commit a criminal act. It's not just a campaign finance violation. A campaign finance violation is, I forgot to report something, or I misplaced a decimal point. It was, $140, not $14, like that. And you make it right, and you pay a fine for getting it wrong. That's a civil violation. This is a conspiracy, a sophisticated conspiracy, to defraud the American people from information that may have affected the way you vote. That's why it's a crime. Personally, I don't think it would have That's just me. I think that the Trump pansies, I think that the people that were voting for him understood that he was a slime bag. They understood that he inspected women. They understood that there were more than a dozen women who were accusing him of sexual assault. They understood that. And so I don't know. But what's really important about Michael Cohen is that Michael Cohen's documents apparently opened up a floodgate of investigations. And those investigations now go into the Trump inaugural fund, which is another $104 million, $40 million of which are unaccounted for. So, I mean, you know, this is unbelievable. So Trump managed to disgrace the Oval Office before he even occupied it. I mean, this is just stunning. And Michael Cohen saying, yes, he directed me. Yes, he directed me. And you know what? It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter if Trump directed him. Although we now know that Trump did because Trump was in the freaking room. Now we know that. But it doesn't even matter if he did or didn't, which he obviously did.
Well, you don't have to be in charge of a criminal conspiracy to be part of a criminal conspiracy. You know, Sammy Gravano was the deputy to John Gotti, but they were both involved in criminal activity. You know, the fact that, you know, he didn't direct this is not legally relevant. By the way, based on what we've seen, Trump may well have directed it. So that may be a lie, too.
Right.
But as a criminal matter, it's irrelevant.
Can we hold on for just a minute about who's significant and who's not? Flynn lied. Hope Hicks, by the way, obviously not indicted, walks out of the White House and says, I told white lies. Sean Spicer gets out and says, haha, 24 hours into the White House, I lied. Paul Manafort lied. Michael Cohen lied. My point is the president can say, look, I wasn't responsible for this. One of the things he is responsible for is what's the tone once the president of the United States, representing 330 million people in the most significant democracy on the planet, walks in the White House? The tone should be when you speak to a prosecutor, you speak to the truth. Everybody lied.
What do you think?
Look, I mean, it's also significant that AMI is apparently sitting on a bunch of dirt about the president of the United States. That is a huge liability and risk for this nation. Not only does it speak to his character, but there actually is sort of security threats and security issues. So, you know, if this is what we're seeing, I do think that there's questions, one, about potentially other transactions, but two, what is the other substantive information that they may have been conspiring to hide?
Exactly. And that is the point. The point is that we have a president of the United States in the Oval Office who is blackmailable. And he's blackmailable by a number of people. I don't know who's got more dirt or compromat, as you like to, you know, call. I don't know who's got more, Pecker or Putin. And what about Congress? They're all blackmailable too. Why? Because Maria Butina lured them over to Russia. You got to realize something. This might help you understand a little bit about Alexander Torshin. Alexander Torshin, who Maria Butina was taking orders from. Yes, I think you understand that he was a former senator in the Russian Duma, and that he's now in charge of the Russian bank, right? The big bank that you know, Putin controls. And so he was all about, you know, money and getting money out of Russia and stuff. And how do you know that? Well, in 2013, Alexander Torshin was an unindicted co-conspirator in Spain. Spain, Randy. Spain. Yes, in Spain. In Spain, they actually were able to indict an underling of Alexander Torshin. Not Torshin because he wasn't in the country. But they had evidence that Alexander Torshin was a money launderer and was laundering money at the behest of Vladimir Putin through Spain. And they shut that operation down in Spain in 2013. Well, isn't it interesting that in 2013, Alexander Torshin realizes, well, America might be open for some money laundering. We might be able to funnel it through. Let me think. How do we do this? I know, the NRA. Let's do it through the NRA. That's what Maria Butina pled guilty to doing, funneling foreign money into the NRA and thereby purchasing Congress members. In 2013, various members of Congress, the Senate, etc., were invited to and accepted the invitation to fly to Russia to appear, this is a lie, in front of Maria Butina's Right to Bear Arms group, which was literally 2 people. But when they were in Russia, one of the quotes from one of the anonymous, I don't know if it's a congressman or a senator because they won't put their name to the story, but it was reported out long ago that they said they drowned us in Russian vodka and the best food, and it was exponentially more fabulous than we thought it would be. It was just, wow, this was an amazing time. This was just well, the Russians were gathering compromise on our drunk senators, on our drunk House members, on our... And by the way, in 2014, Devin Nunes did go to Russia. Just saying. But they've got all kinds of crap on all kinds of members of our Congress. Our Congress is blackmailable. Okay, so you got that. And now you've got Pecker, who's obviously got photos of Trump with bare-breasted women, stories from Trump's doorman about, he has another child that they caught and killed. I mean, who, and Pecker obviously is getting paid with foreign money because yesterday it was revealed by the editor of the National Enquirer. For 28 years, this guy worked for AMI. 28 years. I doubt that, he doesn't know where the bodies are buried. 28 years. I mean, he must have every compromising picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Remember, the National Enquirer was trashing Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, just trashing him and saying, he's a guy that gropes women. Yet all these women come out against Arnold Schwarzenegger, and all of it was all over the National Enquirer. All of a sudden, the National Enquirer becomes a big cheerleader for Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's a great guy. He's a family man. Maria Shriver is interviewed. Oh, she denies that Arnold did any of these things. He's a wonderful man. And Arnold becomes the governor of California with the help of the National Enquirer. So lest you think it has no effect, please remember that portion of the National Enquirer's history. Now, in 2016, you've got stories. Ted Cruz's father was part of an assassination attempt on JFK. That came from the National Enquirer, and Trump is repeating it. And remember, we kept saying, how is a presidential candidate getting away with quoting the National Enquirer, which is completely fake news? And this is all he did, right? And Hillary Clinton is about to die. Hillary Clinton gained 103 pounds. Bill Clinton has Alzheimer's. Hillary Clinton had a stroke. All this front page of the National Enquirer, all at the behest of Donald Trump. Well, subsequently, you have Pecker running a glossy magazine, putting out a glossy magazine. Then a National Enquirer, is a crappy newspaper. It's a paper. A glossy is a magazine. And all of a sudden, David Pecker decides he's going to put a glossy version of the Enquirer out on a tourism guide for the fabulous, fabulous tour that you should go on in Saudi Arabia. Now, the company AMI is in dire straits. It needs money really badly. And then all of a sudden, they run this Saudi glossy, and he's able to buy another magazine, that he's been interested, because he gobbles them all up when he can. All of a sudden, he's got $80 million, and he could buy the magazine that competes with him. Do you see how dirty all this is? And it's all happening right there at your supermarket. It's all happening right there at the Walmart. It's all happening right there on the TV at the Fox News. I mean, it's right in front of your freaking face. All this foreign money just pouring in, buying people up. And Pecker could blackmail Donald Trump. Putin can blackmail probably half of our Congress. Holy crap, man. This ought to scare the crap out of you. And how do we know about all this stuff? Well, it turns out all in Michael Cohen's documents that they seized from his office. Mueller is looking now into whether, the foreign money flowed into the inaugural fund. And the inaugural fund is also prohibited from taking foreign money. Now, it's weird. Like I said, they're only required to report the top 5 vendors. Well, the top vendor, the person who was paid the most money, was Melania Trump's former assistant, advisor, whatever she was, Ms. Wolkoff. She headed up a group called WIS Media Partners. California corporate records show that it was hired 45 days before the inauguration. That's it. 45 days before the inauguration. And it was paid almost $26 million for 45 days' work. That's great work if you can get it. $25.8 million for 45 days' work. That was the largest sum paid to any single vendor. And now we got tape recordings, and we don't know when it was recorded, and we don't know where she was or what. But it's Michael Cohen talking to her, and she's upset about something. This is all we have so far about how money is being spent. But she gets paid, well, her company receives $25.8 million of $107 million. And she's Melania's former assistant, who Melania then fires. I mean, the whole thing is dirty. Every damn part of it. These people have never seen a tranche of money that they couldn't steal from, and that includes our tax dollars. I just want you to know that includes your money. That includes every nickel, every dime that's in the Treasury. He gave it to Jared. He gave it to himself. How? Through this freaking tax bill. Okay? Jared is now getting subsidized for like low-income housing for building, these condos on the Jersey Shore. Donald Trump now doesn't have to pay taxes on his 500 pass-through companies. Do you know what? They gifted their own selves out of our money. This is never going to end until it ends. You understand? This just isn't going to end until it ends. Even Marco Rubio now is denouncing the tax cut. I don't know what's wrong with little Marco. Marco did get a lot of money from the NRA, I will say. But I know how much, 54 senators were given like $54 million. The NRA spent a lot more than you think. It's been reported the NRA spent $30 million. The NRA spent $54.7 million. And they bought our Senate. They bought them. And that's why they're all in denial. That's why they just stay quiet. Because that is probably Russian money. And there's compromise on them from when they traveled over there. There's a reason why Michael Flynn was chosen to be our national security advisor after he was fired by Barack Obama in 2014. There's a reason why Michael Flynn pled guilty. There's a reason why Michael Flynn has firsthand information about foreign money in the transition. There's a reason why Michael Cohen has information about foreign money in the inaugural. There's a reason why Rick Gates pled guilty. He also has information about foreign money in the inaugural and foreign money in the transition. There's a reason why all these people pled guilty, and there's a reason why the Republicans are all very, supportive of any crime Donald Trump has been shown to be involved in, whether he directed it or not. And of course, we know he did, because he's Donald Trump, and nothing gets done without Donald Trump. It's the Trump organization is a small family organization. It's a small company. He pretends that he's got 60,000 employees. He doesn't. Okay. You know what he's got? He's got some maids here in Mar-a-Lago. He's got some staff in Mar-a-Lago. Some of them are illegals. Some of them are here without papers. Some of them are Polish immigrants that shouldn't be here either. I mean, he's got staff is what he has. Everybody else, subcontractor. And then he stiffs them too. He doesn't pay them either. He doesn't pay drywallers. He doesn't pay painters. He doesn't pay bricklayers. He doesn't pay masons. He doesn't pay people that install his windows. Chinese glass, by the way. I mean, this is such a criminal enterprise. There's just no doubt about it. So here we are in the middle of this, and the guy stole from you. And will continue to steal from you, and will continue to lie to you, and continue to cover it up.
The special counsel did say that you were doing your best to tell the truth about everything related to their investigation, everything related to Russia. Do you think President Trump is telling the truth about that?
No.
Oh, my God.
It's a big statement. If he were sitting in this chair right now, what would you say to him?
Lay off Twitter. Run the country the way that we all thought that you would.
Yeah, you
Be
thought.
able to take the Democrats, Republicans, bring them together, and bring the country together instead of dividing the country.
You think he has ears to hear that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
You're a schmuck. You thought he would suddenly after 30 years of being a mobbed up criminal, that all of a sudden he would respect the office of the presidency? You really thought that? I'm telling you, Michael Cohen is in denial too, because Michael Cohen has done so many crimes. Yes, thank God he's helped on Russia. You know why he's helped on Russia? I'll tell you why. Because his best childhood friend, Felix Sater, is a FBI informant, and he had no choice. They confronted him with his own documents. They confronted him with Felix Sater. He had no choice. But he still thinks that he can get away with his financial crimes. He still thinks that. He's still in denial.
You mentioned dirty deeds in your allocution
Done dirt cheap.
Yesterday. When you think about it, when you look back, did you know what you were doing?
I'm angry at myself because I knew what I was doing was wrong. I stood up before the world yesterday and I accepted the responsibility for my actions.
One action.
The actions that I gave to a man who, as I also said in my allocution, I was loyal to. I should not be the only one taking responsibility for his actions.
So he's still lying?
Yes.
Do you know why you were loyal to him at the beginning?
No.
No?
No. It was a blind loyalty. It was to a man I admired, but I do not know the answer to it. And I'm angry at myself. My family is disappointed that they have taught me, my mother, father, right from wrong, and I didn't display good judgment.
For 10
years. You call it blind loyalty. The prosecutors seem to suggest it was, Southern District prosecutors, I should add, seem to suggest it was you were being driven by greed and ambition.
No, that's inaccurate. But again, I took responsibility for my actions, but I didn't make my money working for Donald Trump. I had made a substantial amount of money years before working for Donald Trump. And anybody who knows me knows that to be the truth.
So what do you say to people, and there are a lot of people who would be watching who are going to be thinking, but wait a second, he lied for so long, why should we believe him now? What's the answer to that?
What do you mean lied? Lied about what?
Oh, you're kidding.
At the Trump Organization, it's a microcosm of even just the New York real estate market. What did we lie about? It's New York real estate. Yes, it's the greatest product ever created. Is that a lie?
Well, but you pleaded guilty to lying to Congress.
Yes.
So why should we believe you now?
Because the special counsel stated emphatically that the information that I gave to them was credible and helpful. There's a substantial amount of information that they possess that corroborates the fact that I am telling the truth.
Yeah, and that's what they confronted you with. I'm telling you, you're a schmuck. You're a real schmuck. You're a real liar. You're a real douchebag. And of course he is. He worked for Trump for 10 years. I showed bad judgment. Every day for 10 years? I made my money before I met Donald Trump. No, you made some money before Donald Trump, but Donald Trump was, in your opinion, a billionaire, and you wanted to get there. Being a millionaire wasn't enough for you. Oh, hell no. And that's what SDNY said. Greed.
The people have had it. We've had it with your narratives, your propaganda, your fake news. We've had it with your constant protection of your Democrat overlords, your refusal to acknowledge any truth that upsets the fragile construct that you believe is real life. And we've had it with your pretentious, tone-deaf assertion that you are, in any way, truth or fact-based journalism. Consider this the shot across your proverbial bow. We're going to fisk the New York Times and find out just what deep rich means to this old gray hag, this untrustworthy, dishonest rag that has subsisted on the welfare of mediocrity for 1, 2, 3 more decades. We're going to laser focus on your so-called honest pursuit of truth. In short, we're coming for you.
Dana Loesch, everybody. She better get used to the word welfare because she's going to be on the unemployment line. Because the NRA is going down. It is not going to exist. And this is the way that it has to happen in this country in order to get meaningful gun safety legislation. You know why? because this Maria Butina case is it is the way into the NRA's disgusting, filthy, dirty, dark foreign money hole. The money that buys senators, the money that buys House members. You know, may he rest in peace, John McCain, who tweeted out after a school shooting. Cindy and I are praying for the victims of the terrible Las Vegas shooting. Oh, I'm sorry. This was after 58 people were slain on the streets of Las Vegas at a concert, right? Cindy and I are praying for the victims of the terrible hashtag Las Vegas shooting and their families. Received $7,740,521 from the NRA. Richard Burr, who's in charge of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Okay, my heart is with the people of Las Vegas and their first responders today. This morning's tragic violence has absolutely no place here in America. Received $6,986,620 from the NRA. Roy Blunt of Missouri. Thoughts and prayers, $4,551,146. Tom Tillis, North Carolina. Susan and I send our deepest condolences and prayers to the families of the victims of this horrific and senseless tragedy in Las Vegas. $4,418,012. Not 13, just 12. Corey Gardner of Colorado, same thing. Thoughts and prayers, $3,879,000. Little Marco, who was praying for all the victims, their families, and our first responders killed in Las Vegas last night, $3,879,064. Joni Ernst of beautiful Rolling Hills, Iowa, $3,124,273. Rob Portman of Ohio, $3,061,941. Todd Young of Indiana, $2,896,732. Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, $2,861,047. And in the House, millions there. Ken Buck of Colorado, French Hill of Arkansas, David Young of Iowa, Mike Simpson of Idaho, Greg Gianforte, Montana, Doug Young of Alaska, Lloyd Smucker, Pennsylvania, Bruce Polquin, Maine. Oh, bye-bye, Bruce. Pete Sessions of Texas, Barbara Comstock. Bye, Barbara. She only got 137,232. You were right to vote her out. She's a piker. And those are just the top 10 in the Senate and the top 10 in the House. It's $54 million was spent on these people. $54 million, and all I read you was the top 10. And that's why all you get is thoughts and prayers. And Dana Loesch, you want to check us? You want to call us fake news? Then tell me something, darling. Why are you under investigation? Why is your whole organization under investigation for taking foreign freaking money? And you know, they've already admitted to taking some foreign money. They've admitted to taking some Ukrainian money by accident and $2,500 from Russia. I mean, you know, $54.4 million was spent in the 2016 election cycle. It went almost entirely to Republicans. When you look at the amount that was given to Democrats, it looks like a misprint. But you know what it is, according to OpenSecrets.org, according to, the Center for Responsive Politics that reports on donors and, organizations. See, we can't know the individuals that gave to the NRA because they don't have to disclose. They're a not-for-profit. Can you believe this? But Democrats received, and the number here, you have to say, oh, it must be a misprint. Oh, something's wrong. It says a $sign and then the number 265. And you think, oh, that's got to be like thousands, 265,000, which would still pale in comparison to 54 million given to the Republicans. No, it's actually $265. It's actually $265. But $54 million will buy you a lot of thoughts and prayers with for the victims of the horrific slaughters that have become virtually routine in America. And it does absolutely nothing to stop them. The NRA gave 54 senators. In 2015, they voted against prohibiting people on the government's terrorist watch list. Hear me. 54 senators voted not to prohibit people on the government's terrorist watch list from buying a gun. That costs money, you know. That costs a lot of money. And they spend it, and they This is sick. Mitch McConnell in 2016 got $1.3 million. Mm-hmm. And Dana Loesch is such a traitor to our country. And it's amazing that the NRA, literally, this is such projection. The NRA shrouds itself, wraps itself, bundles itself in the American flag. Oh, F you. They are so dirty and so disgusting, and they are literally doing something that is illegal in this country, and that is purchasing human beings. Can't do that. People are not for purchase, and yet they purchase them. And the Supreme Court sits there and says, oh, well, purchasing people is part of free speech. Oh, man, where were they when slavery was going on? We probably still would have had it if they said purchasing people was part of your ability to express yourself. Corporations are not people, my friend. Corporations are legal entities on paper.
Corporations are people, my friend.
Corporations aren't people.
Right.
People are people.
Everybody can say it in their head because we've had this argument forever. And you want to know something that's really weird? The NRA spent a third of what they spent on Donald Trump on Mitt Romney. They spent 1/3. And then they were having financial trouble. And this year they're having financial trouble too. Donations to the NRA are down. Dues paying members, which is, a small fraction of what they have, way, way down. And yet they had all this money in 2016 to triple the amount that they gave to a presidential GOP candidate than they did from the last time. Last time they spent on Mitt Romney a third of what they spent on Donald Trump. They spent about $10 million on Mitt Romney. They spent $30 million on Donald Trump. Where'd that money come from? It's the same story with the National Enquirer. The National Enquirer is business, is not good, and it's going broke, and they don't have money. And yet David Pecker suddenly has $80 million after publishing a Saudi tourism guide and sticking it on the shelves in Walmart. He's got $80 million, and he can go out and buy a competitor, which is what he wants to do. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Mike in Tampa. No, it's me. Mike in Tampa. No, Mike in Tampa.
Hello?
Yeah, it's me. It's me. I'm all, yeah.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, you mentioned in the National Enquirer.
Mm-hmm.
I think that had a lot to do with Trump winning.
Of course it did.
Because I remember being in grocery aisles, and you'd see a picture of Hillary Clinton looking like she was dying.
Right.
And then you'd see Trump looking like tough or something,
Yeah, and you saw stories. Ted Cruz's father was part of the JFK assassination. Hillary Clinton's gained 103 pounds. Hillary Clinton is dying. Hillary Clinton had a stroke. Bill Clinton has Alzheimer's. I mean, there's no way not to see it. You don't have to buy it, but you're still standing on the line, unloading your cart, standing behind somebody. Right? There's a reason why
nobody buys them, and that's probably why he's
Well,
failing.
some people do, but what I'm saying to you is there's a reason why at the checkout in every grocery store there are items there. There's batteries there. There's gum. There's the National Enquirer. There's all Us Weekly, which they also own. There's all these things there. Why? Because they're impulse buys, right? And you're standing online killing time because the person in front of you has decided they're going to do a year's worth of toilet paper purchases while you're standing there with 15 items, but you can't go to the 10 or less, right?
Yeah.
So you're standing there for a really long time. And what are you doing? You're looking around. I mean, I can't tell you, I don't wash my hair every day. No. So I buy shower caps, and I buy them while I'm standing on the checkout line because they have them there, like 3 to a pack for $1.59. I buy them. But there's the National Enquirer there. There's all these low-carb diet books there. There's these crossword puzzle books there. There's all this stuff there. Why? Because that's when you have time to ingest this crap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, it's funny. I always saw that as, like, the original fake news, really. I mean...
Something is so funny you said that. My mother, when we were growing up, my mother would not let me read these gossip magazines, and there was one really virulent one with Bat Boy on it, right? The Weekly World News. And she would never let us read that. Never. She would just tell me that was garbage. It was lies. Don't read that. And always told us if we wanted to read a paper, at that point it was read the New York Post or read the Daily News. We were never allowed to bring that into our house. I mean, like my father had a sense of humor, so he used to let us sneak a Mad magazine in every once in a while. But we weren't allowed to read those pieces of trash. I still have that same feeling about these pieces of trash because that's how I was raised. But most people aren't raised that way. They were raised reading movie gossip magazines or Look magazine or Us Weekly or People or whatever. And the AMI has bought up every one of them, I think, except People. They own all of them now.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to ask you is, since Pecker's cooperating, didn't he have like a safe full of Donald Trump goodies?
That's the rumor. That's the rumor, that he had a safe full of stuff on various politicians. This is not his first foray into making or breaking a politician with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
This is like a standard business practice.
Right. So what he does is he goes out and he'll attack somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger had plenty of disgusting things in his past. And the Enquirer was putting it on the front page. Well, when Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted to run for governor, he knew he had to deal with the National Enquirer. They're not stupid. So somehow he went to the National Enquirer, and the National Enquirer said whatever it is that Arnold Schwarzenegger did, that was good enough. And all of a sudden, Arnold Schwarzenegger is the hero of the National Enquirer cover stories. So yes, it matters. Yes, it matters. This is where people who don't read newspapers, and only 11% of Americans do, see the news. At the supermarket checkout line, on the covers of AMI's trash.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Yeah, I mean, all your viewers are familiar with the term follow the money. So now we have cooperating with the team, the person who knows where the money went, where the money came from, and he knows darn well that he was writing checks to companies that were built as shells, that were fabricated out of whole cloth. He knows the story, and his story is going to rule the day if he cooperates fully. And I think the message sent today is, if you don't cooperate fully, like Michael Cohen, you go to prison. So I think Weisselberg is very, very motivated to cooperate.
Woo! That's the key that unlocks all the doors. All right, so there's this mystery story that's floating around the internet. Just want to let you know that I've seen it, and I have an opinion. It is not a fact, okay? And we always differentiate between this and, a fact and an opinion. All right, so there's a story that's going around the internet that there was some intriguing stuff going on at the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals today. Reporters were kicked off an entire floor of the courthouse because a grand jury, a secret grand jury, another grand jury, a different grand jury, is hearing a case that's under appeal. There's a mystery appellant who is fighting with special counsel Robert Mueller, meaning they've lost before in front of the D.C. Circuit. So that was the only clue I got from this reporting. It's a bunch of reporters tweeting that they were kicked off the floor of the courthouse. They were on the 5th floor of the D.C. courthouse, and they were all kicked off the floor, so they couldn't see who was entering or leaving, etc., right? And the only clue I have is that this is a case that was previously lost, and today the people who lost against Mueller are appealing it, and they're appealing it in front of a secret grand jury. So everybody's trying to figure out what the issue is. Here's another clue that we got from Nelson Cunningham. He writes for Politico, and he said, when the witness lost the first time in the circuit court, they petitioned for a rehearing en banc. Okay? Meaning that they thought their case was so important that the 3-judge panel that heard their case and ruled against them and for Mueller needed to be heard by all 10 of the D.C. Circuit justices, or judges. They're not justices, only Supreme Court's justices. And Nelson Cunningham argued that that in and of itself is telling, but added it's even more telling that President Trump's sole appointee to that court, he only has one judge that he has been able to appoint to the D.C. Circuit. Remember, that was to replace, Gorsuch came from that court, and Kavanaugh came from that court. And so Donald Trump has put Gregory Castis on that court, and Gregory Castis recused himself, meaning this has to do with Donald Trump somehow, some way. And there's a lot of speculation about what is the matter, what is the issue that's being appealed. Personally, just knowing that there have been other things the D.C. Circuit Court has heard, so that limits you to what has the Trump administration already lost at the D.C. Circuit that they would like to appeal. So for me, I'm going to settle on this opinion. I think it has to do with his tax returns. I think it has to do with making his tax returns public. I think he's lost previously in the 10th Circuit. In fact, I know he's lost previously in the 10th Circuit. Back in, September 12th, 2018, a story was filed by the National Law Journal. See, this is like where I go, okay? You could go to the Inquirer. You could go to Fox News, who will never mention this. You could go to cable news. I'm going to the National Law Journal, okay? So the National Law Journal reported on September 12th, 2018. This is their story. This is by a National Law Journal reporter named Mike Scarcella. Sorry, Mike. Donald Trump proclaimed for months on the campaign trail that he could not release his tax returns because they were being audited by the IRS. He would let everyone see them, he vowed, after the audit. Absolutely, he said at the presidential debate. Those secret tax returns still have not been released and are the centerpiece of a case being argued Thursday in a Washington, D.C. federal appeals court. A panel of judges will decide whether the Internal Revenue Service can be forced to publicly release Trump's tax returns through the Freedom of Information Act. Electronic Privacy Information Center, an advocacy group, brought the suit against the IRS last year and lost at the trial court. The IRS does have the power in limited circumstances to release a private taxpayer's returns, but the judge said neither route, one includes the president himself giving approval, had been established. What plaintiff wants in this case is to peer into another person's income tax records, although the court has no reason to doubt Epic's assertion that the return information on this particular individual, President Trump, would be of interest to the public. That fact does not give the organization a viable legal case. Judge James Boasberg of the U.S. District Court for the D.C. Circuit wrote in his August 2017 ruling. Trump has repeatedly insisted he has no investments in Russia, the country at focus of the special counsel's ongoing election interference investigation. I have nothing to do with Russia, no deals, no loans, no nothing. I don't call Russia. It's not that I wouldn't. I just wouldn't know who to talk to. Public interest in Trump's tax returns, blah, blah, blah. But until then, there is the Freedom of Information Act case going before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. Judges Karen LaCraft Henderson, Harry Edwards, and Patricia Millett will hear the appeal. The case presents a clash between the federal public records law and secrecy provisions of the tax code. So those are the three judges that heard the case. Apparently, if I'm right, this is why I'm telling you, it's just my opinion. If I'm right, then that case was lost. And now they're going back to the court to say, we want more than 3 judges to hear this. This is so important that you need all 10 judges present. But the only judge appointed by Trump, Castis, has recused himself. So that tells us whatever this under seal secret grand jury is considering on appeal after being lost by the appellant and won by Robert Mueller, whatever the issue is, it's important enough that all 10 justices had to be present. And you know it had to do with Donald Trump because Castis, the only Trump appointee, had and did recuse himself, had to. So that's all I got. I don't know. That'll come out. It all does. We got an amazing media. I mean, our journalism in this country is top-notch, first-rate. You know, you think of these people that write these articles, the crap that they go through to write these articles, the Maggie Habermans, the Tom Hamburgers, the Josh Dawsey's. I mean, these are the unsung heroes of the American democratic experiment, and I mean that with a small d. These people are awesome. They are insanely awesome, and the amount of work that goes into crafting these stories. And you know, you look at the older reporting, and then you look at what's been proven to be true. These reporters are not making stuff up. They are not false, fake news report. Everything that they said, everything that they reported, everything that they've documented, the sources they have, the people who do put their names in the paper, the people who don't put their names in the paper, they have all been proven to have given solid evidence to reporters for the benefit of the American public. That's why they do it. And people like Dana Loesch, the old gray hag, and we're going to fisk the New York Times. I don't even know what the hell that meant. Turns out she's working for one of the most unpatriotic dark money holes we have in our democracy. Holes that actually reach out and buy legislation, buy people, buy representation for themselves. Not for our kids, not for people going to a concert, not for people who are walking down the street, not for little kids playing with, BB guns or playing with water guns. No. The justice is purchased by the manufacturers of the lethal means of distribution of bullets. Sick. It's a sick country. We got a problem. We got a problem in this country. Dark money is poisoning everything about America. It's poisoning our climate. It's poisoning the schools. It's poisoning the way hospitals work. It's poisoning the way pharmacies work. It's poisoning the way gun legislation can't even get the time. All we get is thoughts and prayer. Everything is poisoned. Everything is poisoned. And it's David Bossie and Citizens United. And you know that President Trump was considering naming David Bossie, who shepherded the Citizens United piece of crap through the court with Koch brothers money, NRA money, all these dark organizations money, right? The Grover Norquist tax, don't raise taxes on the rich, people. All these people funneling money. It's all going to come home to roost. Why? Because they were so greedy and they were so open to this corruption that they went just like Michael Cohen.
Украшение.
Schmucks. They went too far with their greed. When there was a little bit of buying of this guy or that guy, and then when Alec came along, people started to sit up and pay attention. Then they realized, oh my God, the money is writing the legislation. The legislators aren't even writing it. We have omnibus bills that are thousands of pages long that no one knows what's in them. The senators that vote on it, they don't know what's in them. The lobbyists know what's in them. And I know this because I'm not married, but yesterday was either my 10th or 11th anniversary. We don't know. Howard swears it's 10. I know it's 11. It feels like 11. It's got to be 11. It is 11. I produced photographic evidence yesterday that we met in 2007 on December 13th. So yesterday was 11 years, although he says it's 10. And for 37 years, that man was a lobbyist. I've only been with him for 10, and I made him quit. I couldn't stay. And what did he lobby on? He lobbied on the freaking tax code and trade issues. I'm telling you, the whole thing is dirty. It's bought. It's paid for. These guys write the legislation. These guys go and purchase votes. It's a sick, dirty, dank, dark system, and it's poisoning our democracy.
It's the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
I'd be lying if I didn't say I was worried about this place. It just doesn't work as well as it used to. The Senate has been so enjoyable for me, but I must admit, it puts the fun in dysfunction. Peter Morgan, an author, said no family is complete without an embarrassing uncle. We have too many embarrassing uncles in the United States Senate.
Wow.
Lots of embarrassing stuff. The United States Senate is no longer the world's greatest deliberative body.
Told you.
And everybody needs to quit saying it until we recover from this period of polarization and the fear of the political consequences of tough votes. Writing legislation behind closed doors, giant omnibus bills that most don't know what's in them, K Street lobbyists knowing about the tax bill manager's package before even senators. That's today's Senate.
It is, and it's been like this for quite some time, but not as bad as as I've seen it in the last, I'll say 4 years, 5 years. This is just amazing how you can't get a vote on bump stocks out of the Senate or out of the House. You can't get a vote on background checks when 98% of the American people want background checks before you could buy an Uzi. You know what I mean? You can't. Why? And what she's saying, because they're so afraid to take a tough political vote. Why is it tough? Because the side that's writing the legislation, the side that is for tax reductions for corporations or wealthy donors, the side that represents the gun manufacturers or the bump stock manufacturers, or the side that is for fossil fuels, or the side that is for coal slurry, spend so much money shopping in that Senate for the perfect person to purchase, and if they should take a vote that's contrary to their stated position, they will run millions of dollars of ads against that person to defeat them. And these embarrassing uncles are compromised, not just by the money, but by God knows what else. Like I said, does David Pecker have more compromat than Putin? Does Putin have compromat on the senators that flew over to Russia over and over and over again and were fed copious amounts of vodka and thought that they were having a good time while they were being recorded? The whole thing is broken. It's broken. And ever since Citizens United, it's been infiltrated by not just American big money interests, but by other governments. Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia. I remember when a little bit of money from a Buddhist temple got Al Gore in so much trouble. All right, here's another theory about what's going on at the D.C. Circuit. The person I was quoting, Cunningham, who writes for Politico, I went and looked at his original article about the first time that Castus ever recused himself. And this is from October 31st. So it's a couple months ago, and they've been moving really fast on this particular case. And Nelson Cunningham, who was a federal prosecutor in the Southern District, under Rudy Giuliani, no less, he thinks that what's happened in the court is that the secret grand jury that has this issue under seal, it's being appealed, and a request for a complete 10-judge panel instead of the 3-judge panel, but the en banc, the whole court. He thinks that the case is with regard to a subpoena for Donald Trump to appear before Mueller's other grand jury. He thinks that this entire grand jury was convened to hear Mueller's case on why the president can be subpoenaed. And it seems like the president lost that, and now he's asking for he lost it in front of a 3-judge panel, and now he's asking for the whole court to hear it. So those are the two theories at play, that Mueller has subpoenaed Donald Trump. That's one. And the other is that it could be about his tax returns. But the more I look at it, I don't think so. That was just a, off the top of my head kind of thing. So something's going on, something big, something huge. Eddie.
Randy. How are you?
Hi.
Good to talk to you. Happy 10th or 11th anniversary.
Thank you.
You mentioned a couple minutes ago good journalism and journalists. And it just popped into my head. That was Maggie Haberman was one of the journalists you mentioned.
Yes.
At the New York Times. And she was the author of that article the other day, or was it yesterday, about the Trump inauguration.
Yes, she was. She was one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, one of them. There were two others. And that article was just finally, I feel like they're zeroing in on the money more, because you've talked a lot about the RICO Act and how all of these people can be connected.
Yes.
To me, it's always felt like it was the inauguration fund where there was a lot of dodgy people kind of interconnected with their money, their contributions, hoping to get into sort of a pay-to-play situation with the Trump administration. And in particular, that guy who, was it Sam Patton, who has already
pled guilty
to being basically a straw purchaser.
A straw purchaser for a Ukrainian oligarch.
Right.
Funneling money into the inaugural
fund. Basically buying tickets for that Ukrainian oligarch so that the Ukrainian oligarch could attend, because it looks like
bought 50 tickets.
Right. Well, it looks like that Ukrainian oligarch at the time might not have been able to enter the country because he was on a bunch of watch lists.
Yeah.
That's why I think it was Viktor Vekselberg. Personally, Vekselberg was actually born in the Ukraine, but then all the pro-Russian oligarchs had to leave the Ukraine when Yanukovych fled.
Well, Ukraine is divided. There's the Ukrainian part of Ukraine, like Odessa and all that, and where I'm from. And then there's the Russian part of Ukraine, and it's almost a civil war there at this point.
Yeah, I mean, literally, the boats were just seized and all sorts of stuff going on. But the donors to the inauguration fund, a lot of them had to use straw purchasers.
Yeah.
So as far as a RICO investigation goes, this feels like a gold mine to me.
It does.
Yeah, doesn't it? Because the inauguration fund is a charity. It has to file a Form 990 with the IRS. And they do have to disclose donors who've donated more than a certain amount of money. So if that 990 ever becomes public, which it's supposed to eventually through the IRS, but they haven't filed it yet, that's where you would see names. And I feel like that's where Mueller could actually do some good, is pulling all of that apart and figuring out who's giving money to the inauguration fund.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the inauguration fund, that's also where that guy, do you remember that guy Len Blavatnik? He was a big, he lives in the U.S. now. He's born in Ukraine. He was in business with Michael Friedman and Viktor Vekselberg in an oil company back in the 90s, which eventually got bought up by, I think, BP or someone else, or actually maybe Rosneft. But that guy, Len Blavatnik, he gave $1 million to the Trump inauguration fund through some kind of company that he had. That was the company that was right across the street from Trump Tower in Manhattan. it's not clear who he was making those donations for, but he is also kind of connected to Konstantin Kilimnik. And so is Sam Patton, actually.
Yeah.
I think Sam
well,
Patton
now,
works
just
with
so we can follow some of these people, Konstantin Kilimnik is Paul Manafort's partner in Kiev, in Ukraine.
Right.
Yeah, and he's also got ties to Russian intelligence. And Manafort and Konstantin Kilimnik have worked together for years. So has Rick Gates. Now, Rick Gates, you don't hear much about Rick Gates, but he's got info, too, about the money for the transition, money for the inaugural. Flynn has information about the transition.
Right.
I mean, this whole thing is just full of foreign money. It's full of dirty, disgusting foreign money, which is all prohibited. I mean, I keep saying we have like 2 campaign finance laws left. We got like 2.
Yeah.
And they managed to broke them all. Yeah. It's just...
And, well, that guy, Rick Gates, was working directly with Tom Barrack on the Trump inauguration.
Right, and Jared, too. Jared, Flynn, and Pence were working on the transition. Pence was the lead guy on the transition team. Jared and Flynn were doing that. Barrack was working with Rick Gates.
Yeah.
And who's
the friend of Ivanka, who was one of the vendors.
No, the friend of Melania's.
Sorry. You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
So the whole, like I said, this is why you have to think of the Trump Organization as a small family business, because it is.
Absolutely.
It's
a crappy family business.
That's it's so funny if you get the homework, which is free, by the way. Just sign up at RandiRhodes.com. Just say you want the homework. The name of the homework today is called Disorganized Crime.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who allows for your fixer to tape record you while you're planning on a sophisticated shell company transfer of funds to a paramour in the middle of an election?
These guys,
who allows? What administration are you aware of where somebody was allowed to bring a recording device into the Situation Room and record General Kelly?
But they had to. They had to hire the B team because the A team wouldn't work for them.
But
they had.
But I thought they knew the best people. He knew all the best people. He had the best.
Senator Pat Geary.
Yeah.
Senator Pat Geary. Captain McCluskey from the first one. That's who they hired.
Yeah,
the crooked one.
They're the salt of the earth.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you. And I must be leaving now. I have another hearing I must attend. But I'd like to just tell you that Russians, they're the salt of the earth. Stand up, Pat, Kay, Michael. This magnificent gift. No, really, watch The Godfather. If you haven't seen it lately, watch it. Goodfellas is easier to watch, but you'll get the drift. You really will. Listen, have a really, really good weekend. I'm going to see Kansas. I'm so excited. That's my anniversary gift to myself. Howard got me flowers. Buy a stinking podcast.